We're going to call our shot on the 2025 season coming up to you next on Love for the Game.
Welcome to the Love for the Game podcast. Here's your host, Reed Napper.
And welcome into this episode of Love for the Game. I'm your host, Reed Napper. Thank you for joining us today. And as I preface in the open, we are going to call our shot on the 2025 season. This episode is going to be full of predictions. We're going to predict all four of the Power Conference winners: SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and the Big 12, as well as all of the Group of Five conference winners and the Pac-2. Can't forget about them as well. And we're also going to put out my prediction for the college football playoff. I'm going to give you my national championship winner, my full 1 through 12 bracket. And yeah, we are going to get right into it. Thank you all for watching this episode. Remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell. I really appreciate all the support you guys have been showing. Remember to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and X at LFTGpod01 for all the up-to-minute updates on the podcast and anything else going on relative to the channel. I really appreciate all the support, guys. And let's get right into it. Without further ado, my predictions on the 2025 season, starting with our Group of Five plus the Pac-12 conference championship games. We're going to start with the Pac-12. We're not going to spend too much time on these conferences, only because, they're not, the headlines. So they're not what we want to get to. We want to get to the college football playoff predictions. So in the Pac-12, we still have Washington State and Oregon State duking it out. They will play 2 conference games against each other this season, and I'm projecting Oregon State to win both of those games. I don't see Washington State really having any sort of chance this season. I don't project them to really, be a competitor this season. I project Oregon State to be the better of the 2 teams. So I'm going to rock with Oregon State to win the Pac-2 this coming season. In the Mountain West, I will have Boise State in the conference championship game playing against UNLV. UNLV with a lot of turnover going on with Dan Mullen coming over there as head coach. A lot of transfer portal acquisitions coming over there. So UNLV, a lot of upstart coming into the season under the new head coach. A lot of transfers coming over, headlined by Alex Orji, a quarterback formerly of Michigan. So, but I'm going to run it back with Boise State to win the Mountain West. Boise State to make the conference championship game, run it back again, win the conference with Maddox Madsen back at quarterback. Even though they lose all-star Ashton Jeanty, I do believe the Broncos will be right back there in the conference championship game and beat UNLV for the second year in a row. In the American Conference, I will have the Tulane Green Wave taking on the Navy Midshipmen. Now, these 2 teams have a lot of seniors, 2 senior-led teams through the programs. Navy, obviously famous for their triple option, as all the service academies tend to run. So Navy, a lot of seniors on the offensive side, I think will be the headliner for this team. And then Tulane, obviously getting Jake Retzloff in the transfer portal late from BYU after his whole debacle that went down there in Provo. So Tulane, I think solely because of Jake Retzloff, I like them as the favorite in the American Conference. I will stick with them as the favorite, and I will pick the Tulane Green Wave to win the conference. In the MAC, some action. We have the Toledo Rockets taking on Miami of Ohio. Toledo, the clear favorite to win the conference. And I'm also going to pick another favorite here. I'm going to rock with Toledo. I just think they're head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. There's a couple other big hitters up there at the top, such as Buffalo, Ohio, Miami of Ohio. So Miami of Ohio have a little bit of a outsider pick to make the conference championship game, but I'm going to rock with Miami of Ohio to take on Toledo in the MAC championship, and I'm going to go with the Rockets of Toledo. In the Sun Belt, I've got James Madison in their second year of FBS football to take on the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana. Now, both of these teams were receiving votes in the AP Top 25, which I think is a notable tidbit to mention. JMU, a lot of high praise coming into the season. Some people pick them as their G5 rep. Obviously, I will be picking my G5 rep from this batch of teams here to represent the G5 in the college football playoff coming later in the episode. But James Madison, a lot of people Picking them to win the conference. Louisiana Lafayette also receiving votes. Another senior-led team, as most of these teams in the group of 5 are. So a lot of returning production to both of those teams there. James Madison, notably also adding a Sluka from UNLV, transferred in the middle of the season to James Madison. I'm not too sure if he's going to win the starting quarterback battle because I know they have Barrett, Alonzo Barrett, I think is the quarterback there from James Madison, returning from last season. So I'm going to be honest, haven't been keeping up on that quarterback battle because group of 5. Don't pay too much attention to it. So, but James Madison and Louisiana Lafayette, I have battling it out in the Sun Belt. And then in Conference USA, I will have Liberty taking on University of Texas El Paso, also known as UTEP, the Miners, making the conference championship game in my eyes against heavy favorite Liberty. I'm going to rock with the Flames in the conference championship game. I'm going to take them to win the conference. And just taking another look at my picks here, Oregon State to win the Pac-12, Boise State at minus 145, the only minus favorite here to win the conference in the Mountain West. I'm going to rock with Tulane to win the American, the favorite, plus 400. Over Navy to Toledo, plus 220 to make the MAC championship and win it. In the Sun Belt, I'm going to go with an upset here. I figured, why not? I'm calling my shot. I still think JMU and Louisiana Lafayette will make the conference championship game, but I do believe that Louisiana, could pull off a shock. Plus 700, they're second the best odds to win the conference. I figured, why not call my shot there? Louisiana to win the Sun Belt, and then the Flames of Liberty at plus 110 to win Conference USA. So there you go. Those are my group of 5 conference championship games and winners, along with the Pac-2. Can't forget about those Northwest schools. We're going to rock with Oregon State to win the Pac-12. Now, just a quick break here. We're going to be talking about a new sponsor to the program, Squad Blitz. If you love fantasy football and you love college football, then why not try out Squad Blitz? It is the only college football fantasy app you will ever need. It's classic fantasy football style, except with the twist. You draft teams, offenses, and defenses instead of specific players, quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, stuff like that. You draft specific teams and use their passing, rushing, receiving, and their defenses to accumulate points throughout the season against your friends. So say you want to draft Penn State because you like Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield. So you want to use them for their rushing stats. Say you want to take Alabama because of their stout defense that they're going to have this season, or you want to take LSU because their receivers are projected to be really good this season. They're going to have a loaded receiver group. So you want to take LSU for that. You draft teams based on their passing, rushing, receiving, and defensive stats. Again, as I said, in classic fantasy football fashion, to take on your friends. Enter the transfer portal to pick up new teams throughout the season, and also make transactions with other players in your league to trade teams as you see fit. Make sure to download the Squad Blitz app on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. And upon sign up, select Love for the Game under the referral option once you sign up in the app. And thank you again to Squad Blitz for sponsoring this episode of Love for the Game. And now we are going to get into the Power 4 Conference Championship races. We are going to start in the ACC. Now, I've selected a few teams from each conference that I think will be in contention throughout the season. At least for my projections going into the season at this point, I think there's a handful of teams throughout each conference that could really make a race at it. And we're going to start in the ACC. Now, the ACC has a clear favorite, the Clemson Tigers, coming as a heavy favorite at plus 105. They're projected to run away with the conference, and they have a couple teams, behind them that could make some noise. Notably, Miami plus 400, SMU plus 900, Louisville plus 750, Georgia Tech plus 1400, and Duke. I also have Duke and Florida State and North Carolina in there as well. A couple of longer shots there. But can't turn down those teams. North Carolina with Bill Belichick in his first season, a lot of transfers coming into that program. You don't know what you're going to get out of them. Duke, a lot of guys returning on both sides of the ball there. Also adding Mensa out of the portal at quarterback. I think they could have a solid season as well, maybe be in contention with how things shake out. And then Florida State, also a lot of turnover there. 2 brand new coordinators, a lot of new transfers coming in as well. Again for Florida State coming into the season. So I think the Seminoles could also make a play at it if those transfers pan out, and the offensive and defensive coordinators, get up to snuff with the rest of the roster. I think Florida State could make a shock at the ACC if all things play out that way. So a few notes on some of the other contenders within the ACC. Miami, as at this moment, there's a lot of offensive unknowns relative to the Hurricanes. They lost their top 6 receivers from last season, so I think there's just a lot of uncertainty with Miami, especially with new quarterback Carson Beck coming over. Their offensive line and running back should be productive again within the run game, but I think there's too many question marks on the offensive side of the ball for Miami to really go with them in the conference championship game. SMU, there's also a lot of turnover on the defensive side. They lost 9 starters on the defensive side, and even though Kevin Jennings returns on the offense at quarterback for SMU, they lose Brashard Smith at running back, who was, I think, at over 1,500 all-purpose yards from running back. So I think it's really a key player to lose there for SMU, and losing a lot of production on the defensive side. Louisville, I think they just miss out on the conference championship game. So I predict the Cardinals, Jeff Brom's still there as head coach. Miller Moss coming over at quarterback. Those 2 running backs that they have are also beasts as well. So I project Louisville to make a real shot at the conference championship game in the ACC, but I think they will just miss out. Now getting into the conference championship game, I have a long shot pick in the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I am riding with them. They've been a common favorite throughout the college football public, and I'm rocking with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. I'm not picking them to win. I'm still going to pick Clemson to win the conference, but Georgia Tech to make the conference championship game. As of right now, according to FanDuel, they are plus 1,400 odds to win the conference, which except for North Carolina and Florida State on this graphic, they have the longest odds to win the conference, aside from North Carolina and Florida State. I'm going to pick Georgia Tech. A lot of continuity coming back on both sides of the ball. Love Hayden's King and the job he's done. Love Brent Key and the job he's done as the head coach there for Georgia Tech. And I think they will make the conference championship game in a regular season rematch against Clemson. I think Clemson will win the regular season matchup against Georgia Tech. They go to Georgia Tech in the 3rd game of the season, which I think Clemson should not overlook at all. It's their first conference game of the season. They go to Atlanta to play the Yellow Jackets, and I think they will meet up in Charlotte again at the very end of the season. I will pick Clemson to win both matchups against Georgia Tech, but both of them will be very close. I do believe Clemson will just sneak both matchups out. I'm going to stick with the favorite, Clemson, to win the conference at plus 105 on FanDuel. I just think they're too strong. They've too much returning production on both sides of the ball. Namely K Klubnik at quarterback, and those offensive receivers that they have are too much to handle for the rest of the ACC. And I think a big X factor for Clemson that a lot of people aren't really talking about is Tom Allen coming in as defensive coordinator from Penn State, who led them to a top 5 defense last season. And I think that's a great hire for Dabo Swinney. Finally got into the transfer portal, picked up a couple of players through the transfer portal as well. So I think Clemson, clear favorite. I'm going to rock with them to win the ACC. But don't sleep on Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech could make a run at it in the ACC, and that is my shot for the ACC. Getting into the Big 12 now. A lot of parity and unpredictability once again for the Big 12 coming into the season. America's conference has no clear favorite. There's 8 teams I really project that could win the conference. Arizona State, TCU, Kansas State, Kansas, Texas Tech, Utah, Iowa State, and Baylor. A lot of teams, could make a run at it. Arizona State was picked to last in the preseason poll last year to finish dead last in the Big 12, and they ended up winning the conference. So any team could show up and win the conference, but these are the 8 teams I'm projecting to have a real shot coming into the season. Starting with Kansas State, Texas Tech, and Arizona State, they all have a co-lead favorite at plus 550, which is crazy odds. That just shows you how unpredictable this conference is. When you have a favorite, tied at plus 550. Utah just behind them at plus 600. Baylor coming in right behind them at plus 650. TCU follows up at plus 850. And then longer shots, Iowa State and Kansas, both at plus 1400. Kansas returns a lot of production, namely on the offensive side of the balls, with Lance Leipold still there as the head coach. I think the Jayhawks, could be one to sleep on. Their new stadium looks sick, which would create a very intimidating environment for away teams to come in there and play down there in Lawrence. And Iowa State, I'm not as high on them this year, but Rocco Beck could pull something off for the Cyclones once again with Matt Campbell returning as the head coach. And I think Iowa State just not enough production returning on both sides of the ball. They had a couple of defensive linemen transfer in, but they lost their top 2 receivers to the NFL. So Iowa State, I think, a longer shot to make the conference championship game, if not win it. So, but the rest of the teams in this grouping have a real shot to make the conference championship game, I believe. But calling my shot here, I'm going to rock with Utah taking on Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. Arizona State making it back there once again, back-to-back seasons, making the conference championship game. And I'm going to stick with them to win the conference as one of the 3 favorites, Arizona State at plus 550. I'm going to pick them to go back-to-back. They have a lot of returning continuity on both sides of the ball, except they lost Cam Scatterboot to the draft. But I think they're still well coached under Kenny Dillingham. I think that staff is slept on. I do believe there's a lot of returning production that people are overlooking with Arizona State. And I mostly just trust Kenny Dillingham to get his team right and throughout the season and make it back to the Big 12 championship and end up winning it. But Utah, Devin Dampier coming over. I project Kyle Whittingham to get the defense back right. And, I expect Devin Dampier to be a real game changer for that Utah offense. And I really like them. They're ranked in the LFTG pod preseason poll at number 25. So I just think, I project them to have a really good season. I think Kyle Whittingham will really get the job done and get his squad back on track and back into the Big 12 championship game, but they will come up just short to the Arizona State Sun Devils to go back to back in the Big 12. Now, getting into the Big 10, the conference contenders in the Big 10, Ohio State and Penn State are the favorites to win the conference. Ohio State at plus 185, Penn State at plus 210 right behind them. But the real question mark is, who else is going to come in as that third contender? Oregon, obviously another favorite to win the conference right behind Penn State and Ohio State. But, there's another handful of teams that I'm about to say that could really make a shot at the Big 10 title. Washington, USC, Iowa, Nebraska, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois could all make a shot at the Big 10, play spoiler to those big dogs of Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. I think if any team out of this bunch really had to take a shot, it would probably be USC, Nebraska, or Indiana. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Indiana and overlooking a lot of the returning production that they have and arguably upgraded at quarterback under Fernando Mendoza. Nebraska, easiest schedule in the Big 10. And I think they could easily rip off a 10-win season that no one is projecting. And USC, honestly, even though I didn't rank them in my top 25 preseason poll, I have them just on the outside looking in. I think USC could really be a game changer in the Big 10 if Maava really projects how people think he could play. If USC really wants to make a play at it, I think they can. That defense will still be solid after last season under Danton Lynn coming into his second season as defensive coordinator. So I think USC is really one to watch there in the Big 10 as well. But I'm going to rock with the 2 favorites to make the championship game. I'm going to rock with Ohio State to play Penn State in the Big 10 championship game. I think Ohio State will win the regular season matchup in Columbus on November 1st, but I think they will meet up again in the Big 10 championship. I'm going to go with Penn State to win the conference. I think the whole narrative around James Franklin in the big games, I think once he goes to Columbus, he's going to get them. He's going to learn a lot of things. I don't think they'll win solely because they're away from home. I just have a feeling that Penn State will make the Big Ten championship game, get the monkey off the back of the big game under James Franklin. They'll have the Oregon game as the first Big Ten game of the season in the whiteout. Penn State, they'll go 1-1 in those games. I think they beat Oregon at home, but they lose to Ohio State on the road. And I will pick Penn State to win the Big Ten. I think that they will just get over the hump. I see a way. I project Penn State to have the better talent roster than Ohio State coming into the season, and I think Penn State will win the Big Ten championship against the Buckeyes. And that's just what I think. I think James Franklin will finally get it done in a big game. He has the Oregon game. He drops that Ohio State game in the regular season, but I think he bounces back and beats them in the Big Ten championship game. And I'm going to rock with Penn State at plus 210 to win the Big Ten. Now into the most loaded conference in America, the SEC. It's wide open once again this year. So many teams could have a shot at the playoff at the conference championship game. Texas, Bama, Georgia, and LSU headline the favorites. Texas at plus 280, the favorite to win the SEC. Bama at plus 470 coming in right behind them. Georgia plus 290, and LSU also makes up the top four at plus 600. Now there's a few teams that have outside chances to make the SEC championship, if not win it. So Texas A&M, Florida, Ole Miss, Auburn, Oklahoma, and South Carolina are all plus 1,600 odds or higher. The longest of those is South Carolina plus 3,300. But I think there's just too many players within the SEC at the top. I think it's so top heavy. There's 16 teams in the conference, and 12 of them could be in contention to make the conference championship game. But I'm going to stick within the top four. I think it stays a 4-horse race throughout the season, even though any team could beat anyone on any given Saturday. Shout out to Netflix. But I think Bama will play Texas in the SEC championship game, and I'm going to rock with the Crimson Tide to win the SEC for the first time under Kalen DeBoer. I think they just beat out Texas in the conference championship game. I think Texas will lose the SEC championship just barely again, as they did last season to Georgia. A late Bama defensive play, I think, will win this game, whether it's a strip sack, interception, another fumble, a goal line stand, some sort of defensive play from Alabama, I think will win this game and be the defining moment. I like Ty Simpson. I'm glad he was named the starter. Their offensive weapons, reports have been saying they could be going 8 deep at wide receiver, and their defense is really stout, especially within that front seven, and that's that front seven. I definitely think Alabama's defense will be the strength of the team, and I think DeBoer will just get over the hump and beat the Longhorns in the SEC championship game. So I'm going to rock with Bama at plus 470 to win the SEC. I have already bet this. I've taken my shot. Alabama will win the SEC, and I got them at plus 470 to win the conference. The moment we've all been waiting for now, the Love for the Game podcast college football playoff prediction as follows. Coming in as the number 1 overall seed, we are going with the Alabama Crimson Tide, the SEC championship winners, to take over the number 1 seed. Number 2, your Big Ten champion, Penn State Nittany Lions. Number 3, your ACC champion, Clemson Tigers. And number 4, the SEC runner-ups, the Texas Longhorns. Now, it is worth noting that the college football playoff is moving to a straight seeding model this year in 2025. So you won't get the top 4 conference championship winners in those first 4 seeds. You're going to get the top 4 teams based on the playoff committee's ranking in their final ranking come the end of the season. So Alabama, number 1, your SEC champion. Penn State, number 2, your Big Ten champion. Clemson, number 3, your ACC champion. And Texas, the SEC championship runner-up in the 4 seed. Now, the 5 seed, we're going to rock with independent Notre Dame as the 5 seed. Number 6, we're going to go with Big Ten runner-up Ohio State. Number 7, we're going to rock with Georgia, just missing out on the SEC championship. Number 8, we're going to rock with the Big 12 champion Arizona State Sun Devils. Number 9, LSU, coming in as a at-large bid from the SEC. Again, sticking with those top 4 teams out of the SEC. I think it stays that top 4. I think it stays within that top 4. It will stay a 4-horse race throughout the season. Number 10, we have the Oregon Ducks coming in 3rd in the Big Ten. I think they will just have enough to make the college football playoff. Number 11, I'm going to rock with the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, the runner-ups in the ACC. I think if they go 11-2, lose to Clemson both times, I think that will be enough to make the ACC championship game and enough to make the college football playoff in the last at-large bid. And finally, the number 12 seed, the Group of 5 representative, I'm going to go with the Tulane Green Wave. I think they win the American. I think they're the highest ranked Group of 5 candidate to make the college football playoff. And that is how the 12 teams will be seeded. So we will have each of the first round games will be Tulane, the 12 seed, the American Conference champion, the Group of 5 representative, going to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. LSU, the 9 seed, going out to Tempe to play the Arizona State Sun Devils. Number 10, Oregon, going down to Athens to take on Georgia, the 7 seed, and then 11 seeded Georgia Tech heading up to Columbus. Ohio State will be hosting a first round playoff game once again this season. And I think that is how the first round will set up. Now, who is going to advance in the college football playoff? I will have the 6 seed Ohio State beating Georgia Tech in their home playoff game in round 1, advancing to take on Clemson. I will have Georgia advancing as the 7 seed at home to take on the Oregon Ducks. I will have the 3 seed Georgia advancing over Oregon as the 7 seed to take on Penn State as the 2. I will have LSU going into Tempe to beat Arizona State and set up an all SEC matchup in the second round against the number 1 seeded Alabama. And I will have the 5 seed Notre Dame advance over Tulane to take on Texas in the second round, the SEC runner-up, the Longhorns. And on to the semifinals, I will have Ohio State upsetting Clemson in the second round, heading to the semifinals for the second straight year to advance to take on Penn State, who I will have beating Georgia in the second round. So we will set up a third matchup between Ohio State and Penn State. Alabama takes care of LSU in the second round. The 1 seed carries on, and Texas, the 4 seed, will advance against Notre Dame, the 5 seed. I think that will be a very closely contested game, but I will have Texas just squeaking it out to set up the semifinal matchups of Ohio State against Penn State, the 6 seed against the 2. In Alabama, the number 1 overall seed against Texas, another rematch of 2. I have 2 conference championship rematches in the national semifinals. The 1 versus the 4, Alabama versus Texas, and the 2 versus the 6, Ohio State against Penn State. Moving on, Penn State will beat Ohio State once again to make it to the national championship game as the 2 seed, and I will have Alabama beating Texas in the rematch of the SEC championship game. I will have Alabama as the number 1 overall seed to make the national championship game. And my projection for the 2025 college football playoff national champion will be the Alabama Crimson Tide. I have Alabama beating out Penn State in the national championship game, and the Crimson Tide return to glory for the first time under Kalen DeBoer, the first time since Saban left. Kalen DeBoer is all the way back with Alabama, and I think there's just too many weapons on defense. That receiver room, I think, could go 6 deep and have a lot of weapons for Ty Simpson. Now, as of recording this, Jam Miller will be out for the first few games of the season. He did injure his collarbone over the weekend in a scrimmage. But I don't think I'm going to stick with my prediction. Even when I saw that today before recording, I still think Alabama has enough defensively and enough offensive weapons to really take over the SEC, win the SEC, be the number 1 overall seed, and they are my prediction to win the college football playoff in 2025. And that is going to do it for this episode of Love for the Game. I really appreciate you guys all listening or watching. Remember to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and X at LFTGpod01. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe on this video. And remember to check us out over on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And thank you once again to Squad Blitz for sponsoring this episode. Let me hear your predictions, guys. I'd love to hear it. Love to hear your feedback. Again, we're calling our shot here. Love and appreciate all your support, guys. And thank you for watching this episode. Stay safe.